family in Whitby, Ontario, by the tornado of an election and dropped in Ottawa. An Oz for sure, but in shades of gray. Unlike many of my colleagues, I had never dreamed about being a politician, had never even taken a political science course or been interested in more than the headlines, and had never done the school trip to our nation's capital. The first time I entered the House of Commons was when I started my job as a member of Parliament. I thought business and research were my things, and that philanthropy was the way I'd give back to society. I had zero political aspirations. But then, Jim Flaherty, the finance minister in Stephen Harper's Conservative government, died suddenly on April 10, 2014, just after he had stepped down to spend more time with his family. A by-election was called in his riding, which was my riding. I found myself running. More on how that came about later. I lost that contest to the former mayor of Whitby. Not surprising given that the mayor had name recognition in the community and I did not. That I was a Black woman running in a constituency that was 70% white and had never voted in a Black candidate. And that hardly anyone could remember the last time Whitby had voted Liberal. But I didn't lose by much, and I really don't like to lose, a powerful motivator. When the next general election came around in 2015, I ran again. This time I found even more support on the doorsteps of my riding. People, and not only liberals, were looking for a fresh perspective on politics and found it in me. Not only a Black woman from an immigrant background who had built her own company from scratch and had the business acumen conservative voters believed they could trust, but also a person who embodied the values of diversity and inclusion that the times demanded and that Trudeau's Liberal Party was featuring in its campaign. This time I won. A fairy tale, right? So why walk away from the party only 4 years after that victory to sit as an independent? That was what all the people buzzing my phone wanted to know. My constituents who liked the way I'd been representing the riding and were disappointed that I wasn't a Liberal anymore. Black leaders who thought now that I had a seat at the table, I should learn how to compromise in order to keep it, and that I was letting the community down by not playing the game. Other politicians who didn't want to lose an ally, and party functionaries who wanted to berate me for what they saw as me piling on against a leader who was already in hot water over the SNC-Lavalin affair and the way he had treated 2 female ministers who stood up to him. The feminist PM with a female problem. I had my own point to make and different battles to fight. Something unexpected had happened to me in Ottawa. I would say that I had arrived on Parliament Hill, ready to play for the Liberal team. I had encountered many cynical voters who predicted that as soon as I faced my first challenge as an MP, I would become just another politician. I promised them that I would not. I'd spoken with others who believed in me, but who thought the old elite ways were so entrenched I had no hope of changing anything. I'd also met voters who wanted me to live up to our campaign promise that we would do politics differently, who hoped I would remain the authentic Celina they'd voted for, who wanted me to challenge the old ways in which our country was run. I promised them that I would strive to bend the status quo, that I would bring change. There were a lot of promises to keep, and I'd intended to keep every one. During my first months as a politician, I was so fresh to it all. It was like I was up at 30,000 feet staring down at the whole strange landscape, at the same time as I was struggling to take a few steps on the ground towards the aims I felt I was elected to achieve. It seemed to me that most of the people here were not interested in doing politics differently. They just said they were. Was I naive? Perhaps. But I could also